fast fashion brands started announcing take-back schemes, you might have thought, finally, an end-of-life solution. They're taking responsibility for the whole life cycle of their product, and well, that dream has swiftly come crumbling down. A new report just released by the Changing Markets Foundation has found how unreliable these take-back schemes really are, with most of the items that we donate actually continuing on to become waste even when they are in great condition. I'm talking tags still on. Let's explore the findings and the recommendations that Changing Markets give for policymakers, brands, and consumers in this episode of Tell Me Something I Should Know. So between August 2022 and July 2023, Changing Markets tracked 21 items from 10 fashion brands through their take-back schemes using air tags which showed where the clothing ended up around the world. The pieces were donated to H&M, Zara, C&A, Primark, Nike, The North Face, Uniqlo, and M&S across the UK and Europe. These were all taken from vintage or second-hand stores, but all of the items were still in great condition and could have been resold again. But despite these brands having marketing messages like, let's close the loop, there isn't actually a lot of loop closing going on. Surprise, surprise. There were 4 different paths that the researchers identified these clothes took around the world, with 3/4 of them overall ending up either in warehouses, being deported to Africa, or simply being destroyed. 7 of the 21 items were quickly dumped, destroyed, or downcycled, which means that they were turned into lower value textiles, such as being used in insulation materials. A lot of this was done through a company called SOEX, which is a specialised facility that collects and sorts post-use textiles, although admittedly not very well and not with a priority of finding the pieces that can be resold or that can be recycled. It seems that they are in fact prioritising destroying and downcycling clothes instead. The second category, which was 5 items, were the pieces that did actually end up being resold, although only one of these was resold in the country where it was donated. So then we have to take into account how far those pieces actually travelled from where they were donated, and of course those come with excess carbon emissions as well. You probably would have been better off just selling it on Depop. In the third category are the items that were sort of lost in limbo, which means that they entered the global second-hand used textiles trade and then they were just left in some random warehouses. It's not exactly how consumers are imagining that their clothes are going to end up when they donate them into these bins. And the final category was made up of the items that got exported to Africa, where they enter these massive second-hand textile markets. This skirt, donated in London, went on a 24,800 kilometre journey to Mali, where it's believed to have been discarded. 24,800 kilometres just to become waste. I'm being too enthusiastic with my hands and I'm spilling coffee all over my legs. Investigations have in fact revealed that about 20 to 50% of the clothing that gets exported to Africa actually ends up as waste because it's such low quality and can't be resold. This map shows the routes that all the clothes took around the world to mostly end up as waste. But waste in the global south doesn't count, right? Out of sight, out of mind. But in Kenya, for example, literal mountains of this used clothing are drowning ecosystems and communities. In another Changing Markets report, it was found that over 900 million items entered the second-hand clothing market in Kenya in just 2021.
This is Dandora Dump Site, East Africa's largest landfill and the final destination for much of the world's fashion waste.
But about half of these won't be resold because they are too damaged, they're stained, and so on, so they just go on to become waste. Now, it goes without saying that all of this is obviously in quite stark contrast to the marketing messages that these brands are putting out alongside these take-back schemes. So let's take a little look at what they're saying about them. But not so fast. We don't like fast, we like slow. Slow fashion, slow living. So take a slow moment to hit the like button if you are enjoying this video so far. It really helps me out and it helps me to reach more people with this content on YouTube. Thanks. So C&A, for example, are saying that they're helping their customers recycle and reuse as part of their dedication to a circular economy. They say that customers who drop off clothes will get a discount of 15%. As of May 2021, they have given a new life to more than 30,000 tons of unwanted garments and textiles. But do they mean that they've actually recovered and reused all of that clothing? It's more likely that that means just the amount that's been recovered and then sent off, and they don't actually have visibility over what happens to it once it's been sent off. So instead of these clothes living a happy new life, it's more like dying a slow and painful death. Considering the fact that over half of clothing made nowadays is made using polyester, which won't biodegrade because it's essentially plastic, that clothing will be around in these landfills for hundreds and hundreds of years. At H&M, they start by acknowledging that less than 1% of clothes are remade into new clothing, that little shocking chestnut from the Ellen MacArthur Foundation, and they're taking it upon themselves to turn that around by reusing and recycling fashion. Do you think they actually believe that their take-back scheme is reversing that 1%? Because surely they know. They have basically no visibility on what happens to these clothes when they're dropped off. The clothing that is dropped off is definitely not being recycled into new clothing, which is what that 1% is all about. And even though they say that the wearable pieces that are donated will be marketed as second-hand items and resold, this report is showing that that is increasingly dubious. H&M claimed that in 2020 they collected 18,800 tons of unwanted clothing. There's not much else about what happened to it though. What H&M appear to be aiming at here is this model of fibre-to-fibre closed-loop recycling, which is different to what I mentioned earlier of downcycling, which is taking clothing and turning it into something that is lower value. Fibre-to-fibre closed-loop recycling turns clothing into more clothing, so it sort of retains its value. So whilst only 1% of clothing is remade into new clothing, 12% of post-use textiles are downcycled. But even though fibre-to-fibre recycling sounds really great and like a fantastic solution, there are a few really big challenges with it. If we look deeper into the report, we can see the material composition for each of the items that they dropped off. Most are either fabric blends or they're made of pure polyester. Fabric blends are notoriously difficult to recycle because of the different fibres that are blended together, and polyester is basically impossible to recycle into new clothing. You remember that dress that was marketed to you as so much kinder to the planet because it was made using recycled polyester from plastic bottles, say? It actually probably would have been better if those plastic bottles remained in the plastic bottle recycling system. And the second really big issue is that there's a real lack of investment into this fibre-to-fibre recycling to try and increase that 1% of clothing that is remade into new clothing. Notice any other common themes between H&M and C&A other than the bragging about how much material they've recovered? Well, both of them are offering these discounts or vouchers for when you donate something to their take-back scheme. And 13 out of the 21 items that were donated through this investigation found that vouchers were offered in that case. A consumer survey by WRAP actually found that when people go to donate these unwanted clothes to these take-back initiatives, 15% of people will always buy something new from that retailer right there and then, and 20% will often do that. So all that's really happening is you're being encouraged to buy more and more and more and keep bringing back more and more and more, which means more and more waste. You're being led to believe that this is what circular fashion really is and that you've solved the whole problem. Whilst that is a pretty picture and it's what these brands would like you to believe, that's not the reality, sadly. We just can't get away from the fact that we need to fundamentally change how we consume things as well as redesign fashion to be more sustainable. Really, none of this should come as that much of a shock if you're already aware of the practices that are common within fast fashion culture and fast fashion systems. There's always a lack of transparency and a lack of visibility across these supply chains. When you think about it, it's not so mad that if they don't know how many workers they have or what their working conditions are or what they're being paid, why would they have any more visibility about these take-back initiatives and where those clothes end up that you actually donated? And that lack of visibility means that they can avoid responsibility, because just like with their factories, they can say,
oh, we don't own those factories, so we can't do anything about the working conditions.
They can say the same about the fact that they've outsourced these take-back initiatives to companies like SOEX that are sorting and recycling the clothing. So they can say, well,
we don't have control over that process, we just give it off to our partners and it's not our responsibility anymore after that.
In the most recent Fashion Transparency Index by Fashion Revolution, which rates the top fashion companies in the world out of 100 in terms of transparency, the average for brands was 26 out of 100. Clearly we have a lot of work to do. I've just done another video breaking down that index, so if you're interested in checking that out after this, then I will link it here. So what are we supposed to do about all of this? Well, it looks like there might be light at the end of the tunnel, because the European Commission has just released their latest proposal for the Waste Framework Directive, which is the first attempt at regulating the environmental impact of the textile industry. Textile producers, so fashion brands, will become much more financially responsible for the end of life of their products. They'll have to pay fees to cover the reuse and the recycling of them. In line with some of these changes that will hopefully be coming into law very soon, this report is making some recommendations for policymakers, such as to prioritise fibre-to-fibre recycling to make some of these old clothes into new clothes and maintain that value, and also to move away from virgin plastic through a virgin plastic tax, because a lot of these clothes are made from polyester, as I mentioned before, and polyester is made from oil, so it's contributing to the fossil fuel industry. As for recommendations for what brands can do better themselves, of course they're calling for more transparency. If you don't actually know what happens to the clothes after they get donated to you, then don't make out that you do. Stop offering incentives for people to bring things back and then just buy more, and also put in place more resources for people to be able to repair and continue re-wearing their clothes for as long as possible. As for consumers, we can opt to buy second-hand, we can opt to keep clothing in circulation, in use, to rewear, to repair instead of throwing things away. We can also hold these brands to account when we see this greenwashing taking place, and we can encourage them to be more transparent. We can also use our collective voices to share these stories on social media and with our friends and family, and also to sign petitions that will help us move closer towards a more sustainable future for fashion. Are there any brands that are actually taking this seriously? Yes, there actually are. This article by Good On You, which I'll link in the description, has a list to get you started, including Mud Jeans and Patagonia. Not mentioned on the list, but other brands that I know of personally as well include Vivo Barefoot. So with this company, when you buy a pair of shoes and then you wear them out, you can send them back to them to be re-Vivoed so that they can be given a new lease of life. And for Rapa Nui, they actually design clothes from the very start to be sent back and to be remade as part of a circular economy. So this means that every single item has a QR code in the label, which you can scan to send something back when it's worn out or when you're done using it. And they will actually recycle that into brand new clothing with 50% recycled organic cotton content. What are your thoughts about take-back schemes? I would love to know in the comments, so share your thoughts down there. And if you have enjoyed this video, then don't forget to hit the like and the subscribe to see more from me. Until next time, stay kind, and I'll see you later. Bye!